what are your definitions of hybrid? And they could very well be different from mine. Derrick, why don't you start?
For me, hybrid is really having those viewers in terms of our webcast series. It's having viewers that watch in a group setting, but also having viewers that watch in a remote online our webcast series. For us, it's also doing our webcasts in a hybrid form where we're doing it remotely. So in those scenarios, we're having presenters that are actually pulled in through Zoom. In the past, in the future, we'll probably use MS Teams live events for our viewers. But it's basically being able to pull all that those presenters into the production remotely. So for us, we're also looking at that as hybrid.
Great. Anna, how about you? Do you have a little bit different of a take on this? Probably.
Yeah, working agency side, it is interesting because I always thought like, yeah, you stream a live event and then you've got your webcast audience. You know, it wasn't until I feel like after COVID, we all started to be like, oh, this is actually different than if I'm just streaming from a studio. And it's also different than if everything's remote, right? There was full remote, and then there's on-prem with the streaming audience, and then there's on-prem with remote talent, with decentralized production, right? It's all hybrid on some level. There's almost, you know, very little of what I find myself doing now is not hybrid. There is no element of crisscrossing between locations in any way, right? Even if I'm doing everything on-prem, I'm probably sending it back to a distribution center that is then doing all the encoding to multiple platforms and all of the streaming piece of it, right? It's all hybrid in some way.
Great. Anthony, how about yourself? What's your take?
Well, like as Anna said, you know, and I've written about this, that I think that hybrid is one of those terms like when HD came out, everything was HD. You get HD glasses, you get an HD toothbrush. And I think hybrid is like a buzzword now. And having done various productions before COVID, before hybrid was a thing, we would have remote presenters. Like Bill Gates is not going to come to your thing, but he might appear remotely on the screen for 10 minutes as part of your show, but it's not hybrid per se. Or, you know, you might have let's just say you're doing a live concert. You have an audience here and it's being shot and streamed to viewers online. That didn't make it hybrid before. And, you know, like we watched, you know, live concerts on ABC all the time. They don't talk about this is a hybrid country awards show. No, there's just audiences in both places. But I think what hybrid really comes in when Andra, you know, crossed her arms is when the remote presenter is asked a question from the local audience and they have to hear it, or when a remote audience member needs to ask a question of somebody who's on stage, then you're crossing those lines. And that's when it becomes, for me, the hybrid challenge in managing bi-directional communications between all four corners. That's when the challenge really starts to step in.
Yeah, that's a great point, because now you're sort of mixing the audiences, right? Instead of you just have the in-person audience and you just have the remote audience, now you're sort of having
right.
Sort of
you know, I've done events where a remote audience member needed to ask a question. Well, the local audience needs to hear the remote audience member when they come up to their virtual microphone. So, and as we said, you know, we have someone switching the cloud environment and I'm switching the local environment going into the cloud, but then when that person's in the cloud environment, I have to switch that into the local environment for everybody to see and hear. Then that's where hybrid really starts to get nasty.
Ben, how about yourself? What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, hybrid is when you have a vehicle that runs off of both gas and sometimes electricity. No, I don't have much to expand on what they all said. It's basically it, you know, how do you have the best experience for everyone involved, from the people talking at the event to the people watching the event? Nothing that everyone else hasn't said isn't true.
And I think another way to put it, although there isn't that sort of crossover that Anthony was talking about, is, you know, if you go to a sporting event, for example, right, like big Michigan beating Ohio State in the game. You've got a group of people that are in the stadium, and there's entertainment going on for them. There's music, there's stuff going on the scoreboard, there's all sorts of stuff going on, and then you have the crowd that's watching on TV, and there's a whole variety of different information and entertainment that they're getting that are different from the people in person. But I think the difference is there isn't really that overlap like Anthony was talking about.